Hello everyone, WW2 here, and just recently Sledgehammer released a preview into a new patch to be live on April 10th, and just to say, this patch is simply huge and covers several different aspects of the game, but mostly focuses on revamping the division system to make gameplay feel more fluent. In this video, I'll only cover these changes more lightly since I don't have access to any real stats just yet. But I'll surely work on a more in-depth video once the patch is live. I also included a link down below in the description to the official patch preview so that you can follow along with me there. First off, the biggest change I found in this patch preview that covers all players regardless of division choice is the ability to have unlimited sprints. Yes, this means that just like advanced movement Call of Duties, you'll be able to sprint forever without needing to wait to catch your breath. But to compensate for this change, they also decreased the sprinting speed down from 140% to 130%. Let's just hope that this unlimited sprint change influences gameplay to be a lot more fluent and less stagnant than it is right now. But anyways, the next change I want to cover is that the division perks that used to grant exclusive weapon attachments such as the SMG suppressor, incendiary shells, and the rifle bayonet can now be equipped as a normal weapon attachment regardless of your division that you're using. However, the exception to this is that the LMG bipod and sniper sharpshooter are now equipped by default for free when you choose any weapon for that respective weapon class. I really like the sound of this change as it really frees up World War II's restrictive custom class system, as now there will be much more freedom in creating a class that supports your diverse playstyle. Another great change in this patch preview is that by default, any class can now equip 3 primary weapon attachments, both a lethal and a tactical equipment, and any one of the 2 launchers as a secondary weapon, without being restricted by any basic trainings. For one, I'm a huge fan of these changes as no longer will you be sacrificing a basic training to be able to deal with score streaks effectively. But now, while there's a huge slew of other changes included in this preview, I'll leave these topics to be explored in a future video to come. But for now, as I said earlier, you can take a peek at some of these additional changes in the link below. But now on to the next topic. This patch preview also detailed a large amount of division reworks that will definitely change out how divisions work in World War II. First off, for infantry, the additional attachment remains, but now this will grant you the 4th attachment since that primed is removed and 3 attachments is the new default. Next, 2 new perks are introduced that replaces rifle bayonet and extra magazines. These 2 new perks allow you to have additional secondary attachment, plus faster weapon swap, and the ability to have less idle sway while aiming down sights. Then lastly, the final perk allowing faster ADS movement still remains. In general, these changes really seem to push the fact that infantry is supposed to be the general purpose division that works pretty much with any class, pushing towards accuracy and versatility. Now, Airborne almost got a complete rework because due to the unlimited sprint buff placing it into an odd place. Therefore, Airborne is now able to shoot while diving and sprinting, and also to be able to reload while sprinting too. This is similar to how Gung Ho perk worked in Advanced Movement Call of Duties, which will really help with Airborne's division to stay mobile. The 3rd perk got a buff and now includes no fall damage on top of being able to climb objects faster, while the last perk got a slight rework to encourage momentum-based movement as sprint speed increases gradually now instead of an immediate buff when compared to before. Armored gets a huge buff where not only is reduced explosive and fire damage is now the first perk granted, but it also decreases the effects by 80% rather than before where it was just 65%. The 2 new perks added is increased bullet penetration through objects and reduced flinch when shot. The bullet penetration will probably be similar in strength to FMJ, but it is also unclear in the notes whether it stacks or not. But it would be insane if it did though. The reduced flinch perk will have the potential to be really strong though, depending on how far this perk is taken. But if you ask me, it'll probably be only slightly better than what primed is like right now, since any more than this will turn it back into a crutch perk as it was at the beginning of the game's launch. But in general, it seems as if Armored might actually be the new strongest division right now based off this preview alone. However, Mountain Division is probably the least changed in this preview, as aside from perk reordering, the only changes is that undercover basic training is now completely integrated into the division. So what this essentially means is that when you kill enemies, their death locations are no longer revealed to their teammates, which is extremely helpful in the stealthy playstyle. Where the second effect is that your name no longer appears to enemies while you're being aimed at, which is simply amazing for getting the drop on people in longer range gunfights. Next, Expeditionary got a significant rework due to how custom class loadouts were changed. With Expeditionary, you can now take double lethal and tactical equipment, which is great for fulfilling a utility-based role. Another interesting change is that in addition to killed enemies, munitions will now replenish over time. So however, with some unclarity, this also seems to point out that both bullets and equipment will be replenishable with this perk. But I can also imagine that the refill over time wouldn't be too out of hand. Something like 1 equipment per 45 seconds and 1 bullet per every 2 seconds is something I would expect. This division will also do more damage towards buildables such as walls in war, which is great with the number of increased explosives that this division has. Now, there's also a section in the preview that details how tacticals improved for expeditionary users, but I feel it's best to cover this later in another dedicated video towards it, so keep an eye out for that in the future. Lastly, equipment damage also now paints enemies on the minimap, but however, this is unclear if this also applies to your teammates' minimaps, and for how long this effect lasts. And then finally, the resistance is reworked to provide scrambler and minimap indicator at the first level, rather than having to grind all the way to level 4 for it. Then a good complement for the first perk is also being able to hear enemy footsteps better, which will definitely work well with finding enemies with the help of the minimap indicator. In addition to this, both kills and assists will give a radial ping, revealing enemies in a similar fashion to pinging from Infinite Warfare, or from the portable radar in WW2. To complete this division also gets integrated with the lookout basic training, which also greatly increases the distance in which you can see on the minimap, and the enemy name tags. Now, since this is definitely one of my most longest videos yet, I'll probably leave this patch preview here. There is obviously a lot of things I haven't covered in this video in the patch preview, but feel free to check out the link below for anything I've missed. So overall, I really like the direction that Sledgehammer is taking with World War II in this update. It really breathes some fresh air into World War II and addresses some of the odd and ineffective design choices they made at the beginning of this game's life cycle. But anyways, that'll be all for now, and thanks for stopping by, and until the next video.